The glass boardroom felt like a fishbowl. 20 pairs of eyes watched as my boss slammed his fist onto the polished walnut table. His face turned crimson veins, pulsing like angry streams across his temple. "Take the pay cut or leave," he barked. "You're not that essential, Iris." The silence afterward felt louder than the shout itself. My pulse thundered in my ears, but my hands didn't tremble. I scanned the room colleagues I'd collaborated with for 7 years at a Seattle-based logistics tech firm. Not a single person met my eyes. I closed my laptop gently. The soft click echoed through the room like a gunshot. Then I rose to my feet, the chair rolling back with a low groan. My boss kept talking, his mouth moving like a trout flailing on a dock, but I stopped listening. As I walked toward the door, something strange happened. I smiled, not out of joy, but because I knew something he didn't. Something that would upend everything. In 3 weeks, that company was going to need me, and I wouldn't be there. My name is Iris Caldwell, and for 7 years, I was the silent architect behind their entire digital backbone. While most left at 5 p.m., I stayed until midnight resolving issues before anyone even noticed they existed. I built the client dashboards, wrote the back-end code, maintained the security layers, and kept every server humming. I remember my first week when their last IT manager bailed without warning, leaving behind tangled code and broken infrastructure. The company was hemorrhaging contracts. Their systems were crashing daily. They brought me in as a stopgap, just until they could find someone more qualified. That was 2018. They never replaced me. I rebuilt everything from scratch: automated workflows, custom APIs, and real-time tracking modules that saved them millions. I documented everything, but in my own notebooks, in my own time. The problem with being indispensable is that people start assuming the magic just happens on its own. They forget there's a magician behind the curtain. To my boss, I was just a line item in the annual budget. An overhead cost. He never learned what I actually did. He had no idea the only reason his business still existed was me. It started 3 months ago when the board hired a new CEO. His name was Blake Harmon, a corporate transplant from New York who treated every decision like a spreadsheet formula / costs, boost margins, repeat. He strutted into our Seattle office like a man auditioning for a movie role, power tie, forced smile, and a plan to optimize everything. On his first day, he called an all-hands meeting in the break room and started tossing around buzzwords like operational efficiency and lean transformation. I sat in the back, as usual, sipping lukewarm coffee while finishing a server patch on my laptop. After the meeting, he wandered by my desk just as I was addressing a network bottleneck that had caused our entire back end to slow down. "You're tech support, right?" he said, not even glancing at the 6 open terminal windows on my screen. "I'm the systems architect," I replied calmly. "I manage and maintain all of our IT infrastructure." He laughed. Not a chuckle, a full-on dismissive laugh like I told a joke at his expense. "Right. Well, make sure you're documenting everything. We'll probably be bringing in some real professionals soon." Real professionals. The phrase hit like a slap, but I kept my face neutral. I'd heard that kind of arrogance before from people who thought a title made them competent. What he didn't realize was that I already had documentation. Meticulous records, system diagrams, custom protocol specs. But I didn't keep those on the company server. They were mine. That moment was when I knew I wouldn't be here much longer. 2 weeks later, the warning signs sharpened. Blake reassigned my largest project, a custom-built client management system I'd spent 8 months perfecting, to a junior dev named Josh. The same Josh who once crashed a printer queue trying to install Spotify. "Iris, I want you to mentor Josh on this project," Blake announced during our team stand-up. "Help him get familiar with the system, then take a step back and let him lead." I nodded. Outside, I was professional. Inside, I was livid. This wasn't about collaboration. It was a quiet demotion, but fine. I gave Josh the overview, explained the architecture, showed him how it all fit together. But I stopped doing the behind-the-scenes work. No more silent patches, no more emergency back-end rescues. I did what I was asked: mentor, not lead. Then came the email subject line, Salary Alignment Review. I was standing in the restroom stall when I opened it. Due to budget constraints and restructuring, your annual salary will be reduced by 18% effective immediately. No discussion, no explanation, just 18% gone. And that's when I stopped giving them anything for free. No explanation, no conversation, no acknowledgement of the 7 years I'd poured into that company. I stared at the email until the words smeared into static. 7 years of 60-hour weeks. 7 years of building every digital artery that kept their operation alive. 7 years of answering 2 a.m. emergency calls, fixing crashes before sunrise, and protecting them from vulnerabilities they didn't even know existed. And they thought I was worth 18% less. I flushed, washed my hands, and walked back to my desk with the same calm I used to clean malware from a compromised server. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't outraged anymore. I was finished. That night, I pulled out a dusty filing cabinet tucked in the back of my home office. Inside it were hundreds of pages, blueprints, schematics, and notes I'd written by hand since my very first day. Nothing digital, nothing on the company's server, just mine. Some might call it paranoid. I called it prepared. In tech, knowledge is leverage, and I'd spent my career making sure mine stayed protected. The folders contained it all: server credentials, license, expiration trackers, firewall configurations, automated backup protocols, network topology maps. Information that to me felt routine, but to anyone else would be like trying to decode an alien language. Because I didn't just write scripts. I designed the language those scripts spoke. Custom APIs, modular integrations, layered security protocols. The system didn't run. Without me, it ran because of me. And that system had a massive quarterly update scheduled for next Friday. Like clockwork, it involved renewing licenses, applying security patches, clearing caches, recalibrating load balancers, dozens of tasks that only I had performed for the last 28 quarters. Nobody else even knew what all needed to be done. Blake certainly didn't. He never asked. As I flipped through those notes, it hit me I'd been protecting this place, like it was my own creation. Maybe it was time I stopped. The next morning, Blake called me into the same boardroom where he'd once lectured us on eliminating inefficiencies. Half the executive team sat around the table, eyes avoiding mine. "Iris, we need to talk about your attitude," he said, standing at the head like a sitcom villain. No chair offered, no pretense of respect. My attitude, I'd stayed professional, even after being financially blindsided. But I could see the playbook. Create a narrative. Build a paper trail. Push me out. Then, he added almost gleefully, some team members feel you're resistant to change, that you're unwilling to collaborate. If you want to hear more powerful stories about rising above workplace challenges and taking control of your own destiny, subscribe now and join us as we dive into the next chapter of Iris's incredible journey. I didn't flinch. I just smiled, because I knew they were about to learn the cost of cutting corners. He was laying a trap, creating a paper trail to justify what came next. But then Blake did something that still makes my blood simmer. He pulled a printed copy of my salary and slid it across the table, face up in front of everyone in the boardroom. "This is what we're paying you," he announced loud enough to echo. And frankly, the return on investment isn't there anymore. The air snapped with tension. A few executives audibly gasped. Public humiliation. That was his strategy. I looked down at the page, then back up calm, steady. "Is this supposed to shame me?" "It's supposed to wake you up," he snapped. "Take the pay cut or get out. You're not that important." I stood slowly, my chair scraping back like punctuation. And then for the first time in months, I smiled. "Okay," I said simply. No emotion, no begging, just clarity. I didn't return to my desk. I didn't pack up. I didn't say goodbye. I walked straight to the parking garage, started my car, and drove off. But I made one stop at an office supply store off Pike Street. I bought a brand new USB drive and drove home in silence. That evening, just after sunset, I returned to the office. The night security guard, Dave, recognized me immediately. "Working late again, Miss Caldwell?" he asked with a smile. "Just grabbing something I forgot," I replied. I went to my desk, sat down, and began transferring my personal files notes, architecture diagrams, server protocols, system life cycles, all carefully compiled over 7 years. Nothing proprietary. Just documentation I'd created in my own time on my own terms. I walked the office one final time. Past the server racks, I had configured the workstations, I'd optimized the security protocols I'd written from scratch. Everything was running smoothly for now. I stopped by the main server room, ran my fingers along the rack, and whispered, "See you later." They didn't know it yet, but the most critical update had already left the building. The following Monday, I sat in my favorite corner booth at Bean and Bloom, watching the morning unfold with a vanilla latte in hand. My phone exploded. 15 missed calls. Over 20 texts. Subject lines like, "Urgent," "System failure," "Please call." The chaos had started. The first voicemail was from Josh, the junior developer Blake had promoted. "Iris, thank God. I can't get into the client dashboard. It's asking for some kind of token, and it's just locked. Completely." I deleted it without listening to the end. They wanted me gone. Now, they were going to find out what gone really meant. The second voicemail was from our network administrator. "Hey, Iris, all the servers are showing critical alerts. Something about expired SSL certificates. I've never seen this before. Can you give me a call?" Delete. The third call came from Blake Harmon himself. His voice was tight, like he was trying not to yell in a glass office. "Iris, we need to talk. There seem to be some technical issues that require your expertise. Please call me immediately." I smiled, silenced the phone, and waved over the barista for another latte. The sun was peeking through the clouds over Puget Sound. It was shaping up to be a gorgeous Monday. By Tuesday morning, things had spiraled. What started as a few system hiccups had become a full-scale IT meltdown. I powered my phone back on and watched the panic unfold. 47 missed calls, 108 unread messages, subject lines like, "Clients losing access," "System failure, urgent, please respond." From the chatter I could piece together, it started small. A handful of client portals went down. Then internal dashboards began throwing errors. The automated reporting system stopped generating analytics. But that wasn't the worst of it. The company's primary database server, the one I had babysat for 7 years, began pushing out critical fault codes. Backup systems never kicked in because I had offloaded their setup to Josh after being told to step back. He never finished the configuration. Meanwhile, the software licenses I had always renewed on schedule expired. No alerts, no renewals, no functionality. The client management system, the one Blake handed to Josh, froze. Why? Because it required daily background jobs and maintenance protocols that only I had maintained. And those instructions, they lived in my handwritten notebooks. My personal files. Nowhere else. I could imagine the scene clearly. Phones ringing, clients shouting, executives scrambling, IT staff clicking around in blind confusion. And somewhere in the eye of the storm, Blake Harmon finally realizing what I actually did for a living. The full reality seemed to hit around Wednesday. They thought I'd taken company secrets, but I hadn't. What I'd taken was mine, my documentation, my notebooks, my knowledge. All the custom protocols, all the tuning, all the layering I designed over the years. They had assumed it was stored somewhere neatly inside their systems. They were wrong. See, early in my career, I learned the hard truth. If you don't protect your intellectual labor, someone else will try to own it. So I documented everything on my own time, in my own way, with my own hands. And I built it all from scratch. They may have had the code, but only I knew how it lived and breathed. The source code technically belonged to the company, but the knowledge of how every piece connected evolved and functioned as a living organism that belonged to me. When I walked out, I didn't take any hardware or files. I took something far more powerful, understanding. And without it, they were paralyzed. By Thursday, the tone shifted. My inbox filled with angry emails, thinly veiled legal threats, accusations of sabotage, and demands that I return proprietary documentation. I forwarded everything to my attorney and longtime friend Jamie Patel, who called me laughing. They're accusing you of stealing documents you wrote by hand, on your own time. Seriously, I hadn't stolen a thing. I'd simply stopped giving away my expertise for free. Then, on Friday afternoon, the inevitable happened. Blake Harmon called me directly. I let the call go to voicemail and watched his name flash like a warning light on my screen. Curious, I played the message. Iris, I may have been a bit hasty in our last conversation. We're dealing with some significant technical issues, and the team could really use your support. Can we discuss bringing you back as a consultant? Compensation would be competitive. The same man who once slid my salary across the table to shame me was now offering to pay me more. I called him back not out of kindness, but to see how deep the panic ran. Blake, it's Iris. Thank God. Listen, we need you back. The system's down clients are threatening to walk. We'll match your old salary plus a signing bonus. I thought I wasn't that important. I said sugar sweet. There was a pause, like he was swallowing pride with broken glass. Things have changed. We understand your value now. My value hasn't changed, Blake. Your understanding of it has. Then I hung up. It felt better than I expected. That same evening, my phone buzzed again, this time with a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Caldwell. This is Brianna Rivers, CEO of TechFlow Solutions, our fiercest competitor. I've heard about your sudden availability, she said, measured but intrigued. Word travels fast in this industry, and people are talking. We're very familiar with your work. She invited me to dinner that night at a sleek downtown restaurant. Brianna was sharp-focused and direct. We'd like to offer you a position lead architect. Triple your last salary, full benefits equity, and a team of your own. We need someone who can build scalable systems from the ground up. I didn't hesitate. After years of being invisible, someone finally saw me. And this time, I was writing the terms. Triple my salary. Not the slash number Blake had shoved across a boardroom table, but the full amount I'd earned before the realignment. Times 3. When can you start? Brianna asked, her voice smooth but urgent. I smiled. How about Monday? As I signed the offer letter, my old work phone buzzed again. Blake Harmon. I didn't even look at the message. Some bridges aren't meant to be crossed. They're meant to be burned. That Monday, while settling into my new corner office, with a view of downtown Seattle, the messages started flooding in desperate, frantic, and increasingly pitiful. Iris, please. The board is demanding answers I can't give. The client database is completely locked. We're losing contracts by the hour. I'm authorized to offer whatever you want. Just name your price. Then came the worst one. A voicemail from Blake himself. And this time, I could hear it in his voice, broken pride, real panic. Iris, I made a mistake. A big one. The whole company is falling apart without you. Please just call me back. I'll issue a public apology, anything. We need your help. I didn't even listen to the end. From my new office window, I could see their building across town, gray sterile, crumbling from the inside out. I pictured the chaos. Clients furious, executives spinning stories, systems unraveling. And in the center of it all, Blake finally learning what indispensable really meant. Later that day, Brianna knocked lightly on my door. How are you settling in great? I said, and meant it. I'm ready to build something new. Good, she said, because I have a proposition. Her idea was clean, strategic, and poetic. For years, we've been losing contracts to your old firm. Better systems, better automation, more stability because of what you built. She leaned forward. But if those systems are now failing? She didn't need to finish the sentence. I already knew the plan. We weren't going to steal clients. We were going to earn them. So I went to work not by copying anything, but by creating something better. Leaner, faster, scalable, and secure. Built on everything I'd learned, everything I'd perfected, but free from the toxic oversight of people who never understood it. Meanwhile, my former company continued its tailspin. Through contacts in the tech world, I heard things were unraveling fast. And for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. I hadn't just changed jobs, I'd changed the game. They brought in 3 different consulting firms. 3 spent hundreds of thousands trying to untangle the infrastructure I had hand-coded, fine-tuned, and documented only in my own notebooks. Not one of them succeeded. Each firm took one look at the architecture and said the same thing. Whoever built this was brilliant. But without the original architect, you're basically rebuilding from scratch. And rebuilding would take months' time their clients didn't have and their contracts didn't allow. Meanwhile, by the end of my 3rd week at TechFlow, we'd signed 4 new clients. Every one of them had jumped ship from my old company the moment their portals went down. Their confidence had been with the system, and I had taken that with me. The real collapse came during their quarterly board meeting. I wasn't there, of course. But Tyler, one of the only decent people left over there, reached out afterward. We met for coffee in Capitol Hill, where he told me everything. It was brutal, he said. Blake tried to spin it, said the failures were due to technical debt, outdated platforms, legacy issues. Said these breakdowns would have happened eventually anyway, but the board wasn't buying it. Then someone asked the obvious question, when did all of this start? The timeline was crystal clear. Every major failure happened after I walked out. Every outage, every complaint, every client loss. And then came the question that sealed Blake's fate. Did you even understand what Iris actually did for this company? Tyler told me the pause in the room was agonizing. I thought she was just maintenance, Blake had muttered. I didn't realize she was the only thing keeping us alive. The board voted on the spot. Blake Harmon was removed as CEO that afternoon. The unraveling continued from there. First, the senior developers jumped ship, the ones who had watched me get humiliated and said nothing. Then the project managers left, taking long-standing client relationships with them. The sales team followed, unable to sell systems that didn't work. Even the HR director walked, leaving behind a savage Glassdoor review. Leadership doesn't understand technology or people. They fired their most valuable employee, and now they're watching the company collapse in real time. Good luck to whoever's next. Damo, I read that review from my bright, plant-filled office at TechFlow, where I now led a team of 12 engineers. We were building the next generation of business automation software. Every day brought new challenges, real ones, and finally, the right people to solve them with me. A week after the dust had started to settle, Tyler reached out again. Is TechFlow hiring? He asked. We might have an opening, I replied, but it would be a junior developer role under my supervision. There was no hesitation. That's all I want. Just a chance to learn from someone who actually knows what they're doing. I respected his honesty. He'd been tossed into an impossible situation with no support and tried to hold it together. That wasn't his fault. 6 months after I left my old company, officially filed for bankruptcy. The news broke on a Tuesday morning during a team planning meeting. Brianna knocked gently on the conference room door and handed me her tablet. You'll want to see this. The headline was bold and blunt. Seattle tech firm collapses after losing lead engineer. The article laid everything out: the unraveling systems, fleeing clients, 3 failed CEO transitions, and the board's final decision to liquidate. The piece even included a brutal quote from a former board member. We failed to recognize and retain critical talent. It's a cautionary tale about understanding your own business. Across the table, my team looked at me, half stunned, half impressed. That's your old company? Asked Sarah, one of our newer developers. I nodded once. It is. Damn, said Marcus, our lead engineer. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I laughed genuinely, but inside I felt a strange combination of satisfaction, vindication, and a quiet grief for the good people who had been swept under by one man's ego. Let's get back to work, I said, closing the tablet. We've got systems to build. The final twist came a month later. TechFlow acquired the remnants of my old company at a bankruptcy auction, not for the decaying tech or outdated infrastructure, but for the client contracts and real estate. Brianna asked me to lead the integration effort. And so for the first time since I'd walked out of that boardroom, I returned to the building I had once held together. It was eerily quiet. Desks left abandoned, dusty coffee mugs still sitting like time capsules. The once busy server room was dark, the hum of machines long gone. I found my old desk in the corner untouched. A handwritten cardboard sign taped to the monitor read, "Iris's desk, do not touch." In the drawer, a folded note. "Thank you for everything. You deserved better." I sat down for a moment, took it all in, 7 years of my life. Then I stood up and got to work. We spent the next week shutting down the past and building the future. Shutting down my old company's systems felt like performing surgery on a patient who was already long gone. But from that wreckage, we built something better, something stable, something built to last. A year later, I was promoted to Chief Technology Officer at TechFlow. My team had grown to 30 sharp collaborative engineers. Together, we launched 3 breakthrough platforms. Client retention climbed to 98%, and we posted a profit every quarter. Word spread fast. I was invited to speak at conferences, quoted in industry magazines, and named one of the rising leaders in business automation. But the moment that meant the most came quietly during a team meeting. One of our junior developers, fresh out of college, raised her hand. "Iris, I'm working on the documentation for the new client portal. Should I keep it simple or include all the technical stuff?" I smiled, thinking about the handwritten notes I once guarded like gold. "Include everything," I said. "Document every process, every edge case, every decision. Make it so that someone else could take over tomorrow if they had to." She blinked. "Really? All of it. All of it. That's rule number 1 here. We share knowledge. We don't hoard it. No one should be left guessing how anything works." After the meeting, Brianna pulled me aside. "You know what I love about your leadership," she said. "You're building systems that can survive without you." 2 years after I'd walked away from that boardroom, an email arrived. Subject line, an apology. It was from Blake Harmon. I nearly deleted it, but curiosity won out. "Iris, I know I have no right to contact you, but I need to say this: I was wrong. Entirely catastrophically wrong." He'd spent months trying to understand what went wrong, hired consultants, took management courses. But the conclusion was always the same: I didn't understand what I had. "You weren't just an employee. You were the foundation. I just didn't see it until it was gone." I read it twice, then forwarded it to my attorney and deleted it. Some apologies come too late to matter. 3 years later, TechFlow went public. I rang the opening bell on the NASDAQ with Brianna and our senior leadership team. My shares were worth more than I'd earned in my entire previous career, but that wasn't the real victory. The real win was the culture we built: a team that shared knowledge, valued each other, and built systems designed to outlast any one person. During our IPO celebration, Tyler pulled me aside. "Did you know it would get that bad?" Back then, I thought for a second. I knew it would be bad. I didn't know it would collapse. "Do you regret how it ended?" I looked around at my team, the company we'd created. Not for a second. Today, I sit in my corner office as CTO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. On my desk sits a framed quote, "The best revenge is massive success." But I've come to realize that's only part of the truth. The real revenge isn't just success. It's building something so much better than what you left behind that you forget why you were ever angry. I lead a team of brilliant engineers who trust each other and trust me. We create systems that are documented, maintainable, and designed to last far beyond any one person's tenure. We share knowledge openly because collective intelligence always beats individual genius. My phone still rings regularly. Recruiters, investors, conference organizers. Just last week, Harvard Business School invited me to give a guest lecture on technical leadership. On my bookshelf is a photo from our IPO day, our team, celebrating, smiling, proud of what we'd built together. But I also keep another reminder: the email Blake sent offering me a competitive paycheck to clean up his mess. It's a reminder that your value doesn't change just because others finally recognize it. After an interview with a reporter about workplace leadership, I told her this: listen to your people, not just the loud ones, but the quiet ones who do their work well and ask for nothing in return. And if you're in their shoes, know your worth. Protect your knowledge. Build your skills. Never let anyone convince you otherwise.